Hello again guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're back for another flight in the Just Flight Arrow 3. We're still in the pre-release version of the aircraft currently, but I thought you might like to take another trip in the Arrow just to get a little bit more of a feel for the aircraft. Once again though, I would remind you that everything you see here in the video is subject to change, with Just Flight still planning some improvements to their Arrow 3 before release. And some of the changes they have coming sound pretty exciting as well, I have to say. Anyway, we'll talk more about that during the flight. For the flight today, we're currently on the ground at Alexandria Airport on the southern island of New Zealand. And we're going to take a short hop from Alexandria up to the north towards the airport of Wanaka. The route is actually one that I made in the very early days of the channel, but I thought we'd revisit the area and see how everything looks in Microsoft Flight Simulator. As always guys, I do hope that you enjoy the video. If you do, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. If you have any comments or questions for me, please leave them down in the comments section below. But now let's get ourselves buckled up in the Just Flight Arrow 3 and we'll get underway. So welcome everyone once again to the cockpit of the Just Flight Piper Arrow 3. We're currently on the ground here at Alexandria Airport in New Zealand. It's pretty late in the afternoon now, the time is around 4:30. As you can see, it's a fairly overcast day here in New Zealand, but overall the weather's pretty nice for our flight. I thought that you might like to see the Just Flight Piper Arrow out in action once again, so we're going to take our trip up towards Wanaka. Anyway, we're pretty much ready to go here, so we'll get the aircraft closed up. Secure the door, and we'll start running the before start checklist. So the pre-flight inspection has been completed, passenger briefing is not required, seatbelts and shoulder harnesses are secure, circuit breakers are checked in. I'm just going to pull the instrument panel circuit breaker just to isolate the GNS 530 for the start. Landing gear lever is down and the brakes are tested and set. For the fuel tank, we'll leave the fuel tank selector on the right tank for the start. For the startup, the mixture is in the idle cutoff position. Propeller is in the high RPM position. Throttle is open 1/4 of an inch. Beacon can come on. Master switch can go on. Turn on the fuel pump, we'll bring the mixture lever up to the fully rich position, wait for our rise in fuel flow, which we have, bring the mixture back to idle cutoff, and the fuel pump can go off. So the engine is now primed for the start, we'll just get rid of the yoke momentarily. Prop area is clear. Give them a quick shout. Clear prop! Close up the DV window again. I find the engine needs just a little bit of mixture to get her started. We'll engage the starter, and as soon as the engine catches we'll come up to fully rich. So there's a good start, bring the mixture up. And just bring the throttle up slightly, letting the engine idle at 1200 RPM. Oil pressure has come up, that's in the green. We'll leave the mixture in the rich position. Low meter is checked, that's showing about 20 amps currently. The flaps are retracted. Avionics we can start turning on now, so we'll put the circuit breaker back in. Garmin unit, the volume's turned all the way up. Transponder can go to standby, and we'll leave the rest of the avionics off for today's flight, we're not going to be using them. Heading indicator, we're showing a heading of 030, about 035 on the compass, so there is a slight discrepancy there, but that's within limits. Altimeter. There's no ATIS here, but the aerodrome elevation is 752 feet, so we'll set that. And we'll do the same on the secondary altimeter. So altimeters are set, and we are now pretty much ready for the taxi. I'll just finish setting up the Garmin unit. It's worth noting actually I'm using the GNS 530 mod today. A couple of viewers pointed it out to me. And I have to say it's really good, I highly recommend going and checking it out. It's completely freeware and it adds a lot of extra realism and functionality to the unit. You can see I now have the unit in track up rather than track north, which is really nice. We'll just turn on the terrain display as well, as we are going to be flying through quite a bit of high terrain today. We'll tune up traffic, I believe that's 1191. And the wind, looking at the windsock, is out from the north, so we'll take runway 32 left. And we'll announce our taxi.
November November Zulu Lima X-ray traffic Gulf, India Tango Bravo Sierra is taxiing to runway 32 left.
So the holding point's just off our 1 o'clock there, very short taxi. And the wind's pretty much on our current heading, so we'll just taxi over to the holding point and carry out the run up there. So we're all clear, park brake off. Quick instrument check in the turn, everything looking good there. And the same back round to the left, slowing the aircraft down. Instruments look good. Come to a stop just before the holding points. Park brake on. Bring the throttle back up to 1200 RPM. So for the run up, the nose wheel is straight, the brakes are set and holding. Flight controls. Are full free and in the correct sense. Fuel selector, we'll turn that now to the left tank. Mixture is fully rich, the throttle can come up to 2000 RPM for the run up. Again, making sure the brakes are holding. Says 2000 RPM, we'll check the left magneto. About 100 RPM drop on the left, back to both. And the same on the right. Say the magnetos are within limits, we'll check the prop. And the prop's good. Engine T's and P's, oil pressure's in the green, oil temperature's in the green, ammeter looks good. Fuel pressure's in the green. No annunciator lights, we'll just check the panel. And suction is within limits. So coming back now to idle. And idling around 1000 RPM. Back up to 1200. So continuing the checklist, the throttle friction lock is set. Communication and navigation to radios are set. Flight instruments, so we have 752 on the altimeters, showing a heading of 050, 052 or thereabouts, so that's within limits. We'll set the heading bug on runway heading. So 320. And we'll set our departure track on the CDI bar, which is a heading of 300. So flight instruments are checked, fuel quantities. We have full fuel in each tank and the tanks are balanced. Elevator and rudder trim set for takeoff. Autopilot is off. Flaps, we'll set flaps 10. And the flaps are visually checked. Cabin doors and windows are closed. Seats are adjusted and locked. Departure briefing. So we're departing on runway 32 left, departing straight out. We have full power takeoff. Once we have positive climb, we'll get the gear up. Through 300 feet, we'll retract the flaps. And above 500 feet, we'll come back to climb power. Rotating at a speed of 57 knots and climbing away at a speed of 90 knots once we have the gear up. We're ready for the takeoff now, so the fuel pump can come on, landing light can come on. Anti-collision lights can go on, as can the pitot heat. Transponder can go to out. Checking that it's all clear on final, which it is. It's clear upwind as well. We'll call traffic departing out to the north.
November Zulu Lima X-ray traffic Gulf, India Tango Bravo Sierra taking off runway 32 left departure to the north.
And the time is 3:1 for our nav log. So as I say, we'll pretty much be departing on runway heading. We're actually heading down the valley that you can just see off at our 11 o'clock. All ready to go, so we'll start coming up on the power. This is a slight crosswind out from the right. Says full power. RPM and manifold pressure look good. T's and P's are in the green. Coming back on the yoke. And we have positive climb, tapping the brakes, gear up. Just keeping the nose down till the speed comes up to 90 knots, starting to trim the aircraft. So aircraft's pretty nicely trimmed now, we'll just reduce the pitch a little bit more, gain a little bit more airspeed. Through 300 feet the flaps can come up. And just coming up on 500 feet now, so we'll come back to climb power. So 25 inches on the manifold pressure. And 2500 on the RPM. We'll just come out slightly towards the west just to avoid the worst of the high terrain. We're going to be flying down this gorge in just a moment's time. Off on our left you can see the town of Clyde. That's just out to the south of the Clutha River. So we have Clyde off on the left. Alexandria is all the way back off the 7 o'clock position in the distance there. And you can see Alexandria Airport as well, which of course we just departed from. You can see looking at the GPS there's significant high terrain around, but as I say, we're going to fly down the Cromwell Gorge to avoid the worst of it. Climb up to around 3,000 feet, obviously we'll make sure we stay below the cloud base. And you can see the Clyde Dam just passing off at our 11 o'clock below the nose there. Obviously the Clutha River is dammed off to make a bit of a reservoir. So we'll just follow the Clutha River all the way through Cromwell Gorge. That'll lead us out towards the town of Cromwell. Really nice having all the details that you get in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I took the same trip a long time ago in Orbex, New Zealand, and whilst that was a really nice package for its time, it certainly doesn't have all the same level of detail, of course, as we get now in the sim. Makes flying much more interesting. Anyway, we'll continue down Cromwell Gorge. We'll call up New Zealand Centre 1293. We'll request a flight following.
New Zealand Center Golf, India Tango Bravo Sierra is type 4 miles northwest of November Zulu Lima X-ray. Request flight following.
Golf, India Tango Bravo Sierra New Zealand Center. Walk 7556.
So interestingly, I noticed on the last flight I set the wrong squawk and air traffic control didn't reply, but I've also noticed it doesn't matter what squawk you set, if you do it manually, air traffic won't reply, so we'll just auto-acknowledge there. Cool.
Squawk 7556 Tango Bravo Sierra.
Let the sim do it for us.
Tango Bravo Sierra radar contact 5 miles northwest of November Zulu Lima X-ray 2,900 feet. QNH 29.27.
Copy Tango Bravo Sierra.
Okay, so she's acknowledged our position, we've got the correct QNH set. Yeah, so as I said, when I tried manually setting the squawk, it didn't matter what I set, even if I set the correct squawk and then acknowledged. Air traffic control doesn't currently reply in the sim, so you have to auto-acknowledge that. Anyway, levelling the aircraft off at 3,000 feet, just getting the aircraft trimmed. Let the speed build up a little bit more before we come back on the power. And as I mentioned in the comments of my previous video, I'm definitely looking to get some sort of upgrade to air traffic control for the sim. Whether that's Pilot to ATC or the other quite popular one, I forget what that's called, I think it's something like Pro Flight 3 air traffic control. They're both possible options, I'll have to look into a little bit more. So far I'm erring slightly more on the side of Pilot to ATC, just because you can actually communicate via voice with that particular system, which would be really nice. Anyway, we're in the cruise now. We'll come back to 22 inches on the manifold pressure, 2300 on the RPM. That'll be a nice cruise power setting over towards Wanaka. Get the fuel pump and the landing light off. So as you can see, we just continue to follow the Clutha River out towards the other side of the mountain range here. That'll take us towards the town of Cromwell, and then we'll follow the reservoir up out to the northeast past Lowburn and Mount Pisa. And I have to say, despite the slightly overcast conditions, really stunning scenery, as I said. Really beautiful conditions. You can't really go wrong in New Zealand. Pretty much anywhere you pick to fly, it will be absolutely stunning. And the clouds do always make for some really nice, interesting lighting in the sim as well. A few little bumps off the hills here. Not sure what the wind's doing currently. Up to 12 knots out from the north by the looks of it. So a little bit of turbulence just coming off the hills, I think. Should smooth out once we get into the valley. And once we get out into the valley, we'll set the autopilot, let that do its thing. We'll cruise along and we'll talk a little bit more about the Just Flight Arrow. There's a few developments and updates coming to the aircraft before it's released, which I think are pretty exciting, I have to say. So this is the town of Cromwell, just off the nose, as I mentioned. And we've got the Clutha River again up to the north. Another big reservoir, as you can see. It's a little bit of a nature reserve out towards the south of Cromwell by the looks of it on the map. And a golf course out towards the northeast of the town. See if we can spot those on the way past. I think we can already spot the golf course. Getting a little bit of sink here off the hills. Having to come back on the yoke just to counteract that. You can see the airspeed dropping there as well. As I say, we just follow the Clutha River out towards the northeast. The valley will open up a little bit more. We'll pass Mount Pisa on the way up. And then we'll pass Queensbury. We can actually just follow the main road, which is Highway 6. And that will take us all the way in towards Wanaka. So we'll set the heading bug up on our current heading. And we'll engage the autopilot, so autopilot on, heading on, and I'll set the altitude hold mode in just a second. I'll just get the altitude back down to 3,000 feet. So there's 3,000 feet. Altitude hold can go on. Just note the time again, so it's currently 4:1. Quick check of the T's and P's. Oil pressure looks good, oil temperature looks good, fuel's looking good. Just come out slightly on the GNS. So you can see we're basically heading all the way down this valley, and then we'll peel off to the left to head between the next mountain chain up towards Wanaka. Anyway, I said we'd talk a little bit more about the Just Flight Piper Arrow 3. There's still a few more changes to come to the aircraft apparently before it's released, and one of them in particular I think is very exciting. So as you'd imagine, there's still a few more minor fixes to go in terms of systems and things of that nature, as you can imagine. Apparently they're still overhauling the engine sounds and aircraft sounds as well, which I have to say I find quite unbelievable, as I already find these sounds to be absolutely excellent in the aircraft. But the really major change that I think could be a real game changer, very interesting to me at least. Apparently there's a new flight model coming for the aircraft, including some custom coding to get around some of the sim's current shortfall in flight modelling. So I suspect that will mean that the aircraft will stall a little bit more reasonably, perhaps spin as well. Overall, as I said, I mean, it could be an absolute game changer if the aircraft flight dynamics are much closer to a real aircraft than you currently tend to get in the sim. I think that's a really exciting development. I'm looking forward to trying that out for myself. I already think that the Just Flight Arrow is probably the best product currently available for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and certainly with a few more improvements it'll be hands down the best product. There's just no two ways about it. And if they can nail the flight model as well, then it's a real game changer for the sim. It'll turn the sim from being something that I really enjoy. It's a nice VFR simulator. I think the flight model feels pretty good generally cruising along, but really tends to fall down at the edges of the flight envelope. So if they can just nail that down, I think this sim suddenly becomes a very different prospect for everybody. Still, I haven't had a chance to try out the final release version yet. Looking forward to doing so, and I'll report back when I do get the chance. Just come slightly left on the heading. You can see the valley already that we're looking to head down towards Wanaka. And you can see Highway 6 as well, just down on our left here. Again, this aircraft is just an absolute joy to fly, and as I've mentioned many times now, I love Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think personally it's a really good sim for this sort of flying, and with this aircraft it just makes the whole experience infinitely better. So we're just crossing over the top of the somewhat secondary reservoir now. You can see the river starts to thin out again as we head north. You can see that on the map. So the town of Queensbury should be just off at our 11 o'clock down there in the valley somewhere. Looks like there's a lot of agriculture going on around here. You can see a lot of the sort of circular structure of a lot of the farming. Quite interesting. We should have the town of Taras as well off on our right somewhere. I think that's going to be a bit tricky to spot though. They're all pretty small urban dwellings for the most part. So again, this is Highway 6 just passing below us now. That basically kinks around towards the east and then back up towards the northwest. We'll just cut the corner slightly here as we go through the valley. And just before we enter the valley, we'll cancel our flight following and we'll call up Wanaka frequency to tell them we're coming in. Come a little bit further left on the heading. We'll get rid of the terrain display now. We know we're going to be passing through the mountain chain here and up into the valley. Time to run now is 6 minutes, so we're not too far off destination, about 10 miles left to run. And again, if you haven't tried this GNS mod for yourself, I highly recommend it. It really adds a lot of nice functionality to the default GNS. The default GNS isn't particularly spectacular, and given that it's used in so many default and add-on aircraft, having the add-on really improves a lot of aircraft in the sim currently. So we'll cancel our flight following now.
New Zealand Center, Tango Bravo Sierra, cancel flight following.
Tango Bravo Sierra, New Zealand Center cancellation received. Squawk 7000.
Okay, so we've been handed off by her. We'll go back to standby. We'll squawk 7,000. Turn the transponder back on again, and we'll tune up Wanaka. So we do have an ASUS at Wanaka. It's 1276. We'll get that first. So the wind's out from the north. They're using runway 29, which is great for us. That's pretty much straight in. Heavy rain apparently on the arrival, which I don't know about you guys, but I don't see that right now. We'll see what we have when we get there. Anyway, we'll call up traffic. I think it's 29 left. That's the tarmac runway. I'll just check Sky Vector. Just bear with me while I do that. Yeah, so 29 left's the hard runway. And we'll announce a full stop landing. We'll make a position report.
November Zulu Whiskey Foxtrot Traffic Gulf, India Tango Bravo Sierra 6 miles southeast, 3,000 feet inbound to land, runway 29er left.
Okay, so position report's done. We'll run the descent checklist. We're not going to descend just yet though. So HOTAS has been obtained, altimeter is set, passenger briefing is not required, mixture is rich, throttle and propeller are set as required, landing light can go on, and the fuel selector, we'll change tanks now anyway, we're going to be descending fairly shortly. So back over to the right tank, we burned about 8 gallons there, which as I say is a little bit higher than I think we would expect. Fuel pressure's good, so the fuel pump can come off again. And as you can see from the GPS, Wanaka's more or less straight off the nose. We'll come out to the northwest just slightly. So we'll take the autopilot out again. You can already see the runway at Wanaka actually. We'll call final now.
November Zulu Whiskey Foxtrot Traffic Gulf, India Tango Bravo Sierra is on final runway 29er left to land.
Just coming back on the power there, hence the gear warning horn. Let speed come back. We'll take the landing gear. So brakes are off, undercarriage is down, 3 greens. Mixture is rich. Fuel pump is on, fuel quantities are sufficient. Instruments are checked. And harnesses are secure. So we'll take a stage of flap. Keep letting that speed come back. I'll take another stage of flap. So 29 left, we're landing on, we'll vacate off to the left, just taxi up to the parking area. Profile's looking good at the moment. There is a little bit of weather, it looks like, out over the hills. I'm still not seeing any heavy rain though. Trimming the aircraft still. Go flaps full now. And the pitch can go full fine, so we have pitch full fine, undercarriage is down, flaps are set. Landing clearance is not required, the runway is clear. And we are ready for the landing. Not going to worry too much about where we touch down here because we want to roll through for the runway exit anyway. A little bit bumpy. So coming back on the yoke, coming back on the power, holding the aircraft off. There's touchdown. A little bit of a knock from the wind there. I'd say I think I'm going to have to look at my rudder curves because I had the same issue with the Just Flight Arrow before, and I think the problem is I have quite a significant curve on my controls to account for the overly sensitive rudder in the sim. But that means I get little input initially and then a very big input at a certain point in my rudder motion. I think the Just Flight Arrow's rudder input overall is probably pretty good, so I'll get rid of the curve and try it again at a later date. Anyway, vacating the runway. We'll call runway clear.
November Zulu Whiskey Foxtrot Traffic Golf, India Tango Bravo Sierra is clear of the runway.
So flaps are up. The fuel pump, landing light, anti-collision lights, transponder and pitot heat are off. Find somewhere to park up that hopefully we're not going to be too heavily disturbed by this ground traffic. Ideally we'd park up next to the fuel bowser there, but then that's going to bring up a wonderful Microsoft Flight Simulator window that I really wish we could turn off. Just get ourselves parked up over here and have a rather beautiful view of the hills. So bring the aircraft to a stop. Park brake on. The after landing checklist, the wing flaps are up. Mixture will leave in the fully rich position just for now. Fuel pump is off, landing light is off. Navigation lights will leave on. Transponder is off. No taxi clearance was required. So securing the aeroplane, the avionics can come off. Just pull the circuit breaker again to get rid of the Garmin unit. Everything else is already off. Throttle is at 1200 RPM. Mixture will bring to idle cutoff. And we have a good shutdown. Ignition can go off. Master switch off. And the beacon can come off. So that's the securing checklist complete. We'll just get the door open again. And that's us. So there you go guys, I do hope you enjoyed our trip from Alexandria up to Wanaka this afternoon. Again, I thought that the scenery was pretty stunning. It really does highlight just how great the simulator can look. You can't really go too far wrong flying anywhere in New Zealand, the whole place is absolutely beautiful. And again, the Just Flight Arrow 3, an absolute joy to fly. Even in its current state, the aircraft is already an excellent product. And as I mentioned during the video, with the changes that Just Flight are still looking to make, I think that the future prospects of this product, and indeed Microsoft Flight Simulator, are looking really promising. Anyway guys, once again I do hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. If you have any comments or questions for me regarding the Just Flight Arrow 3, please leave them down in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. But for now, thanks very much, and I'll see you all again soon.